Welcome, dear friends, in this 19th year of the Turner Winter Series. I'm Maureen Raveno. I offer this welcome on behalf of Greg Peterson, the founder and perennial host of the Turner Winter Series these many years. We welcome with delight those of you who are with us this evening in the comfort of the Kappa Theater here in the Robert H. Jackson Center, as well as those who are enjoying this program virtually. It is my great pleasure to begin our evening with a brief introduction of our guest, Mark Geise, after which I will turn the conversation over to Jamestown's and the Jackson Center's own Greg Peterson. Mark Geise is Chautauqua County's Deputy County Executive for Economic Development and CEO of the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency. He has just been named to the recently published 2024 edition of Buffalo Business First's prestigious Power 250 listing. The Power 250 is an annual list of the 250 people whom, after 3 months of research, reporting, and debate, the full news staff at Business First regards as the most influential and powerful people in the 8 counties that make up Western New York. Mark was first appointed to his role of Deputy County Executive for Economic Development and CCIDA CEO in March of 2018. Since then, he has spearheaded the effort to grow and expand business opportunities throughout Chautauqua County, including overseeing the agency's efforts to help employers during COVID-19. In 2023, under Mark's leadership, the CCIDA has seen unprecedented economic development activity, assisting with over $840 million in capital investment in the county. Mark has also played a pivotal role in the creation and subsequent oversight of the Chautauqua County Partnership for Economic Growth, an initiative of CCIDA's component organization, the Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation. We will learn tonight about the multi-millions of dollars in economic development resources for public-private economic development projects across Chautauqua County that this partnership has provided. Mark also founded the Chautauqua County Land Bank Corporation, which has been serving the community for over 10 years. In short, Mark is recognized for his hard work in growing and building the economy here in Chautauqua County and in making the county a better place to live, work, and conduct business. And so, with this impressive background, it is now my great pleasure to welcome back Mark Geise in conversation with Greg Peterson.
Mark Geise, Power 250. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really quite an honor. You've been in the public service business for well over 30 years, since your Fredonia days. And do you kind of reflect back on that aptitude of public service? Is that something you gleaned from your mom or your dad at all? Was that something that they were part of?
Well, they were certainly both involved in the community a lot. My father was a music teacher for many years and directed the Harrison Glee Club and the church choir and the musicals. And my mom was always a part of a lot of organizations and the stuff my dad was doing. So we were always very active in the community. I think when I think about it, when I got out of graduate school, urban planning graduate school, and I in 1991, I took a job with the city of Dunkirk as the development director, and I did that for a couple of years, and then I left the public sector and I went into the private sector and I worked in manufacturing for about 10 years. I sort of missed that role of being able to do something in the community. And so when I had the opportunity to come back and work for the county, I jumped on it, and I'm glad I did it. And I do relish that role of being able to do things, do stuff in the community that helps the community and creates jobs and helps families. So, yeah, I do enjoy that.
Was there an aha moment in all of that? Sort of you're out there in the private sector and saying, been there, you worked in the private sector, you were at the city of Dunkirk, you went back to the private sector and said,
Yeah, I think when I worked as a senior planner for Ecology and Environment in Lancaster, and they were an environmental engineering firm. And it was all project-based, and it was, you do a project, it could be a 3-month project or a 6-month project, and you're done. And you're on to a different project, and it's not, most of the projects weren't in our community. So it wasn't like I was helping out my own community, and it was one project after another, like shotgun. And so, being able to come back and then actually do projects in my community that could help my community. I think there was, after a while with E&E, I sort of felt like, I'm not sure this is for me. I think I'd like to get back to what I was doing originally.
And then you became Deputy Director, Planning and Economic Development for Chautauqua County in April of 2009.
Yep.
Was that a tough adjustment to go from, again, private sector, public sector?
Well, I worked, it was funny story behind that, because I interviewed with Bill Daly and Rich Dixon, and I knew the chemistry right away was right when I interviewed with them, and they offered me the job on the spot, and it really wasn't a big adjustment. Honestly, I liked the people I worked with, and I understood the projects because of my experience with E&E, and I just dove right in, and it felt right from the very beginning.
Then after, really in 2017, you took an opportunity to be Director of Economic Development in Monroe County.
Yep.
For a couple of years, and then a position became available here.
Yeah.
Was there any hesitation about applying here?
Well, when I left the county, I thought maybe there was other opportunities for me. At the time, I didn't feel it didn't feel right where I was at for a little while, and it actually worked out well for me, because when I went to Monroe County, I really had no IDA experience, and because I was working for the planning department and doing planning stuff. So when I went to Monroe County, I was able to really cut my teeth on what IDAs do and how they do it. Monroe County has a solid IDA, and so it gave me the opportunity to really understand how it works and ways of doing things. And so, of course, when George Borrello, Senator Borrello, was elected as the county executive, he asked me to come back and be the IDA director. So, it actually all worked out really well.
Well, I think one of the benefits, and with all due disclosure, I'm one of the general counsels for the County of Chautauqua IDA for several years. But so we're aware of Mark Geise, and you knew the people, you knew the position, so this was not a big leap for you.
No, it wasn't. Not only that, but think about the commute. I had an apartment in Rochester. I'd leave on a Monday morning very early. I'd come back sometimes on Wednesday night, leave again on Thursday, and then come back Friday night, or I'd stay the whole week. And so that was very disruptive to our lives. So that was not easy. And of course, like you said, I knew all the players. I had worked for, by that point, 3 county executives. George would have been the 4th, and then PJ, of course, the 5th. So, yeah, I settled right in and felt comfortable, and got back I got back on the land bank board, so I got back involved in that, and some of these projects like the comprehensive plan that we did and the Greenway plan that we did, got right back into those projects and settled right in.
Well, you should probably explain for the camera why you were hustling back from Rochester to Fredonia during the week and on weekends. You had a reason to go back.
Well, yeah, my home's in Fredonia, so obviously, and my wife was in Fredonia, and she wasn't about to uproot. She loves what she does. It wasn't about to uproot and move to Rochester. So I had an apartment there, and my home base was Fredonia, and that's why.
Let's give a plug for your wife.
Sure.
Let's talk about her a little bit, because
Well, we just celebrated our 33rd wedding anniversary. And there's I don't, say how much I should say, but, it's a kind of a funny story about how we met. We met in a bar in Buffalo.
Which, by the
I
way,
asked-
is a common story for most people.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, but this probably isn't common because I asked her to marry me the next day. And we eloped 28 days later. And so here we are 33 years later, 3 kids. We have 3 kids in 3 years right away. And Katie stayed home with the kids for about 10 years through their formative years until they were in school. And then she went, and she was actually, she graduated from Buff State, and then she went to law school at UB for a year. And she commuted with Mark for a little while. I was like, I can't do this, and took a leave of absence, and then got pregnant again, took another leave of absence, got pregnant again, took another leave of absence, and I was like, well, maybe, that isn't for me right now. And so, but she ended up, working out at Fredonia Place for a little while, and then she worked for, on the Hill. What's that?
Job Corps.
Yeah, Job Corps. I couldn't think of it. She worked for Job Corps for a little while, and then the corporation that oversaw Job Corps had an opening at Chautauqua Works for the director of Chautauqua Works, and they went right to Katie because she's really good, and she did great at that. And then, of course, when Sue McNamara left the position as the WIB director, they pulled Katie into that position. So, yeah, and it's kind of cool because, think about the synergies between economic development and workforce development. I mean, they're interconnected. Companies are looking for people, and people are looking for jobs. And of course, being in that world, we have a lot in common. We go to a lot of the seminars and the events together. And we always say we presented at an economic development conference together about making workforce development and economic development work together. And it's always like, well, if we can't figure it out, who can? So, yeah, it's been a wonderful. We have a great life, and I couldn't be happier.
By the way, WIB for the camera is Workforce Investment Board, and you are the power couple in Chautauqua County,
Yeah, right.
Texas. And I'm delighted you gave her the plugs because someday she'll be talking about you when she's sitting there.
Yeah.
So you've been the 2 roles you actually wear, and maybe you should explain to the camera, because it's sometimes confusing to the public at large, what hat you're wearing.
Well, I wear 2 hats, actually, and, in my position, I'm appointed, anybody is appointed, right? As the IDA director, they also wear the hat as they oversee or manage the Department of Planning and Development for the county, and there's a difference that, people confuse it a lot, that they think the IDA is a county agency, and it's not. It's its own public authority. And so I'm the CEO of the IDA, the public authority, and then I manage the planning department for the county. And the planning department for the county has 3 divisions. It has watershed, economic development, and community development. Or planning and community development. So I oversee those 3 divisions of the county. So I wear both hats.
It's remarkable. I'll read this. The department, which is the county's Department of Planning and Economic Development, is staffed by planning, economic development, and watershed management personnel. Along with implementing state-mandated activities, the department also manages over 60 contracts, including general funding allocations and those resulting from management of the occupancy tax programs. Activities of the departments are many and varied and are constantly evolving, as it tends to be the go-to department for any county activities that don't neatly fit into the other departments' missions. We're going to talk about the IDA, but under your role as Deputy County Executive, could you just kind of start ticking those off, including like the Alliance and things like that?
Oh, boy. Well, let's talk about the occupancy tax first. That's you have this 5% charge on all overnight stays in Chautauqua County. That 5% goes to a fund called the occupancy tax, and that's split. 2% goes to watershed coordination and watershed projects, protecting our watershed, and 3% goes to tourism activities. That 3% goes and helps pay for, the CCVB, a majority of their budget, and then a number of other activities. We have a grant program every year that we solicit projects, and then we allocate that funding to projects that events and other projects that create more tourism, okay? And then on the 2% side, it goes for helping out a number of agencies with watershed management, like the CLA and CLP and others, but also then there's a grant program there for projects that, like stream stabilization projects and things like that. So there's a lot of contracts through there, but then the county also allocates funding directly to like the Chautauqua, the Cornell Cooperative Extension and Soil and Water, SBDC and others. So we oversee those contracts. So that's one part of it. And what you read was referring to, the state mandated stuff, is like the 239 review. So anytime a project has an impact on a state road, it's within a certain distance of a state road, or there's a variance required for certain variances, then they ask for the input of the planning board. So we oversee the planning board too. So the planning board, the county planning board, looks at those and reviews those requests. We also do the capital projects process, where every year through the county, there's a certain amount of funding that they've allocated for capital projects, and there's a whole process where all the department heads submit projects for capital projects funding. And through our planning department, we oversee that process, and there's a whole scoring criteria. There's interviews with all the department heads. They talk about their projects, and then makes a recommendation back to the legislature on, these are the projects that these are ranked. They rank them all, and so then the legislature takes that and determines what the capital project expenditures will be. I mean, there's so many other things. I mean, we just did a housing assessment and marketing study. We did a code enforcement plan. Like I said, we did a comprehensive plan. We did a greenway plan. We're doing a lot of trail development. God, the list goes on and on and on.
How do you keep track of all that?
I sort of understand it at a high level, and some things better than other things, but I mean, that's why you have staff, right? And we have an incredible staff, and they keep track of all that stuff, and I'm sort of like at a high level, and I pay attention, and we have project meetings every week, and they let me know this is where it's at, and what do you want to do, where do we go from here, that kind of stuff. So I do the best I can keeping track of it. I don't know.
Well, that's the role, that's the one hat, the deputy county executive, and you also are, through the charter, and also a specific contract with the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency, which, as you mentioned, is a separate public agency. It's not part of the county, except for the fact the county is involved, either the county executive or the legislature, in appointment. But once they appoint them, it's a separate animal. It's a creature of New York State.
Yep.
So as the head of that, when people ask you, what does the IDA do, what do you tell them?
Well, we assist businesses with the resources that they need to either locate here or expand or purchase equipment. That's primarily what we do. So we have various tools to do that. I would say the easier one to understand is the loan fund that we have. So we have a couple of loan funds. As you know, you've been involved for 40 years in our LTEC loan fund. But more recently, we created an EDA CARES Act loan fund. Basically the same thing, but we got the money from a grant, actually, just post-COVID. And so we provide funding to businesses, and it's high risk. We take a backseat and collateral position to the bank, and so we help these businesses that might not otherwise be able to get the funding, because they're able to go to a bank for, say, half the funding, and the other half is a majority of us, and then some equity from themselves. So that's the loan fund. And then we have tax incentives. And people hear pilot, they don't always understand what a pilot is, but a pilot really is a property tax abatement that's created from an increase in assessment of the activity of their investment. So their taxes will go up, basically. And what this does is it allows that to incrementally be phased in over time. That's what a pilot is. And I could get more technical about it, but that's a simple way of putting it.
Pilot means what?
Payment in lieu of taxes. So it's off the tax roll, and we receive those payments, and then we distribute those payments to the taxing jurisdictions, simply put.
Mark, just, we got a lot of publicity. The IDA was the beneficiary of a couple of significant post-COVID or during COVID grants, millions of dollars to distribute. Why do you think the IDA Chautauqua County IDA got a disproportionate from anybody else in the state?
Yeah.
Why was that?
Well, I think a couple of reasons. One is that, we've had this LTEC loan fund for 40 years, managing it, and I can't remember how much it started with, but it was a sort of like seed money that's grown over time, so obviously it's been managed well. And so we already had the infrastructure in place, and we already had a proven track record. And I think that, when they came to us and said, we have money, we'd be interested in taking a look at whether, we would want to allocate some to you. We'd like to know if you think you could get it out on the streets within 12 months or 18 months. And we said, yeah, we think we can. And we submitted to them a list of all the people that had inquired in recent months that we said that we had to turn away because we had lent it all out. So I think we did a pretty good job of convincing them that we could get it out on the street. And then the other, quite honestly, Rich Dixon is our CFO, and he's been a mainstay of the IDA for over 20 years and is got an incredible reputation. And I think because of him being there, that, and his relationship with them, for all those reasons, I think that's why we were granted that money.
And it is interesting, it's as being a revolving fund that once the money is paid back, you can then use it for other things.
We keep lending it out.
Yeah.
Keep lending it out. And you know what? Some go bad, but we've had a pretty good track record of repayments. It is high risk, so you're going to lose some, but we've done a good job of getting that out on the street and doing the right thing with it. It's all about creating jobs. And it's, that's the bottom line. The other thing I wanted to say real quick about the IDA is that we provide technical assistance. So people come to us and they say, I don't even know where to start. What's out there? What does the state have? What does the federal government have? What do you guys have? What does the local municipality have? And we sort of manage that whole thing and bring the right people to the table. Workforce development, we need 20 people. What do we do? Get Katie involved, or and bring all those right people to the table so that we can sort of hold their hand through the process and make sure they're tapping into all the resources that are available to them.
Through the pilot program, there are other incentives in addition to tax abatement, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, we got the sales tax exemptions from the state. Right now, manufacturing equipment is already exempt from state sales tax, but anything else, infrastructure costs, things that have a useful life of more than a year, are also would typically be subject to sales tax, we can abate that. And then, of course, mortgage tax exemptions. If they're going through a conventional lender and borrowing money, we can waive that as well.
And I think it's important that your message to municipalities is if somebody seeks a pilot, the actual property does not, they don't lose taxes.
Right.
So how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so I think people think that the tax money goes away. It doesn't go away, so what's already in place stays there. It's just the incremental increase that would accrue from the investment that doesn't start right away. It's ratcheted up over time. And that gives the company time to really get their feet under them and get the right people in place and get their processes going. And 10 years goes pretty quickly, and then it's fully on the tax roll. So I think that's important. You know, the other thing that's important to say is that there's a but for, and that we need to demonstrate that but for these incentives that we're providing, the pilot, the project wouldn't happen or wouldn't happen to that extent. So it's important that that's understood as well.
You just presented to the board the County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency 2023 annual report. And I was one of the beneficiaries of the report, so I got a sneak preview. And I thought tonight would be a good night if you wanted to take some time, Mark, and to perhaps accent some of the highlights. And for those, it is, I assume, it is available.
Yeah, it's on our website, ccida.com. And we also have hard copies available. Yep. And you know, we started doing an annual report about 4 or 5 years ago. I guess it was soon after I joined the IDA. Never really had a report that, you know, we could pull out every year and look back and say this is what we did. So I think it's getting better. It's evolving. And you know, and meanwhile, I think you know, we're showing that each year, at least until this year, we've been able to sort of increase the number of jobs that we're creating, the number of jobs we're retaining, the amount of investment in Chautauqua County. We've been able to do that over the years, and this year we had an exceptional year where we were able to you know, be involved in projects that will pump about $840 million into Chautauqua County. And we were fortunate because 2 of those projects are Cummins Engine that we were involved in. That was $542 million. And Wells Ice Cream is doing a whole remake, if you will, and that's $250 million plus. So those 2 projects alone are significant, and that doesn't happen every day or every year. So we're lucky. But you know, we were involved in 34 projects this year. From those projects, 570 or so jobs will be created. 2,300 jobs retained. We did 9 loans this year. We secured $10 million in grant money, and that's sort of a new phenomenon. We've got, like I said, a great staff, you know, between Nate Aldrich and Rebecca Worster and Dave McCoy, and I shouldn't name any names because I should name every name, honestly, because everyone's so important and everyone's a rock star, but we're able to secure about $10 million this year in grants, which is pretty big deal. And then about $2 million that we pay out through the pilot program to the taxing jurisdictions in 2023. So that's the highlights. You know, some of the other projects we did, Weber Knapp, we helped them, local ownership purchase Weber Knapp to keep it local. Refresco, that's a building that, we owned a building in Dunkirk. It was a formerly ConAgra that we owned for quite a number of years, and we were finally able to sell it to Refresco, and they're gonna pump $13 million or so into it and make it sort of a northeast distribution hub for them and create another, I don't know, I can't remember, I think about 10 jobs there. So that's a good story too. We were able to secure a $600,000 EPA grant to create a brownfield revolving loan fund, brownfield remediation revolving loan fund. They have one in Niagara County. It's very successful. There's, these brownfields all around. A brownfield is a contaminated site from legacy contamination from prior manufacturing typically. And to be able to have the money to help these developers to clean those sites up, because the bank, that's not really something that the banks will finance. So that's exciting. Of course, Electrovaya bought the old Accurite building in Mason Industrial Park to make neon batteries. And that they're going to invest about $42 million. It's lithium-ion batteries, $42 million in that, and create 150 new jobs. And so that's a big one. The other thing I should mention is we went through this authority's budget office review, and out of that came a number of recommendations, and we've implemented. We're currently still working on the website redo, and that will be rolled out here in the next couple of months. But we've addressed all their concerns, so I feel really good about that. And that was a lot of work. We're creating a shovel-ready site in Ripley. We recently got a $5.25 million Fast New York grant through Empire State Development to assist with that. We were able to get quite a bit of money from the county through their ARPA, their $24.8 million ARPA allocation. Very grateful for that, and some capital projects money. And so we're, working towards developing a 146-acre shovel-ready site in Ripley, right off the interstate on Shortman Road.
As a planner, you're a planner, you're a strategic thinker. Walk us through the genesis of, and ultimately the planning for, and the implementation of the Ripley site. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a classic example of something that's really been on the drawing board for many, many moons, but you energized it.
So, you hear it all the time, and I've heard it for, 15 years about shovel-ready sites, and hearing it more and more at the state level. And then Invest Buffalo Niagara recently did a study, well, not recently, it was about 5 years now, that they were looking at our preparedness for development and concluded that we were really, Rich doesn't like this word, woefully deplete of shovel-ready sites in the region. And that was certainly one spark that was able to sort of use as ammunition to go to the funders and go to the county and say, look at, we're not just saying this, we really are. We need shovel-ready sites. I mean, and so, the first thing that we did is we started out, I'm a planner, right? So we started out with, let's start in the North County, because we still have 60 acres in Mason Industrial Park. But up in the North County, we only have about 10 acres in the Chadwick Bay Industrial Park, and not optimal 10 acres either. So we're like, well, probably the need is greater up in the North County right now. So let's start there. We started out we contracted with an engineering firm, Clark Patterson Lee, and we said, let's take a look at all the sites that are out there that we know that sort of have the right stuff, right? That are fairly large, that are near the interstate, that have, electric, water, sewer, whatever. And we started out with about 35 sites, and we assessed each one of those, and we sort of rated them, and then came down to 3 sites. And this Ripley site was one of them. And then what we did with those 3 sites that we found as part of Invest Buffalo Niagara's assessment, they sent Newmark Frank personnel, they're a big site selector, came down and looked at the 3 sites, and they said, that Ripley site, in our mind, is the best one that you have. You should really invest in that. So that was sort of the beginning. And then, of course, when the ARPA money was allocated to the county, I really wanted to get in there and make sure that we could get some of that money for the shovel-ready site, because it's that important, companies aren't don't want to screw around for 3, 4, or 5 years trying to buy a site and trying to get all the permitting and do all the environmental due diligence and all that. They want something that where they can get in there and have a shovel in the ground as soon as possible. And there was work that was done on the Ripley site, as you know, 10 years ago, where they had options on those sites, on those parcels. There's 4 different property owners there. Had options, but they never followed through to purchase. And so we've now purchased about 64 acres, or are in the process. I think there's one more that needs to be closed, but, and then we, of course, have that Fast New York money, and we've got the money allocated so that we can move forward.
And then you own it. But obviously, there are plans, there's infrastructure. This is in Ripley,
Yeah.
which hasn't necessarily have the infrastructure. So what's the planning process of all that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, it's no easy, probably purchasing the land's the easiest part, because then you gotta extend water, and you gotta extend sewer, extend electric, you know, if it's not already there. So there's a lot to do with the engineering, the pre-engineering, and the engineering, and the permitting, and where do you get the money to do it? And that's all sort of wrapped into what we did there. You know, the Shortman Road, Ripley did extend the water and sewer a number of years ago. And when we did the Love's truck stop there, we worked out a deal with them so that they had a pilot and a host agreement. And that host agreement, those payments go back to the town of Ripley to help pay for the cost of maintaining that water and sewer. So, you know, we're thinking the same thing here, where we did sign an agreement with the town of Ripley to manage that road after we build it, and we'll do the same type of thing. We'll offer a pilot and a host agreement, and that host agreement will go to the town so that they have the resources they need to maintain that water, sewer, and the road. But there's a lot to it. I mean, when you think of the due diligence, it's archaeological, it's geotech, it's wetlands, it's, you know, it's SHPO. You know, there's a lot of different things that need to, and what you're doing is you're basically doing all those studies before this type of development occurs there, so that when that development comes in, you basically already have all those studies undertaken, and they might need to be tweaked a little bit, but for the most part, they're completed.
At what point in the stage, the timeline, do you have enough to say, let's market this? Let's go to market.
That's a good question. I mean, I think we have to know exactly when everything's going to happen and when it's going to be completed. I mean, at least need to know that now. We have an idea right now, but before we actually do the engineering and put it out to bid and understand what the construction cycle is going to be, I think that we need to know that first before then we start really marketing it hard. But we're ready to do that when the timing's right.
What's the end use, do you think, of, no, I realize it's not a crystal ball, but you shovel-ready site, but you're looking at the acreage and the potential uses, and you've kind of planned this out as to what Ripley will permit as usage.
Yeah, so it's warehousing, distribution, logistics, and light manufacturing. And that we didn't just come up with that concept, say, wouldn't it be nice to have that here? That was one of the sectors, you know, that the Investable Niagara study said is needed in this region. So it's based on, you know, an analysis that was done. And the fact that that is literally almost a stone's throw from the New York State Thruway is, you know, I think it's going to set us up really well for, you know, something like an Amazon warehouse or something like that.
Are you listening? But also along that line, you'll have ownership. The County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency will own it, but you have to kind of do all of this because it's planning, it's code enforcement in lockstep with the municipality. And how do you engender that kind of relationship?
Well, I mean, first of all, the town of Ripley did a comprehensive plan where they said that they really wanted something like this. So certainly it fits into their planning. We had to get that site rezoned. So they rezoned it. So obviously, clearly, they're on board. I think that the challenge with any of this is, and it's everywhere, right? You get a change of leadership, you get a change of, planning board members and others, and so there's always a challenge with consistency of leadership. And, and that just happened in the town of Ripley. Doug Bowen was there for a long, long time, and they just had they had somebody in place for a town supervisor, and that just changed again. So, between our planning department and our relationships, and obviously we got so much momentum, we just keep moving forward. That's probably not a good answer, but.
Do you periodically meet with the municipal officials? I'm thinking of the mayors and the supervisors. Is there kind of an opportunity for you to, from the IDA, reach out?
Yeah, and I probably don't do it enough. I probably should do more of that. I know, so our planning department has been setting up meetings with the municipalities. I keep saying, I gotta come with you. I'm trying to find the time when I can do it. But I know a majority of them, and, get a chance to meet with them. But, certainly in the cities of Dunkirk and Jamestown, where I would say most of the activity occurs, we made it a point to immediately go and meet with the new mayors, and have had several meetings since too, because there's a lot of projects going on. So, yeah, we keep those relationships fresh.
By the way, I'm not going to do justice to your report. I highly recommend you see it online or get a copy. But I do want to touch on a few things which was brought up in Maureen's introduction, talking about the Chautauqua County Partnership for Economic Growth. And Nate Aldrich is sort of heading up that. And when you listen to that report and all the activity, it's remarkable.
So back when I was appointed to this position, George and I, Senator Borrello and I, met to talk about this concept of creating sort of a separate entity that would sort of coalesce all of the economic development stakeholders in the county. We don't really do that in the IDA. We don't do that in the planning department, and there's certainly, the development directors and the mayors and supervisors and the foundations and others that have an economic development interest. And so we really worked hard to sort of think about what it would look like and where it would live and what it would do. And we contracted with Camoin Associates. They're a firm that does this kind of thing, and figured out that it would make the most sense for this thing to sort of live under the umbrella of CRITIC, which is the Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation, which is a sister organization to the IDA, sort of under that same umbrella, because that's its mission, economic development, and really envision this as something where we're not just thinking about economic development, we're thinking about those other things that are related to economic development that are crucial. Workforce development, I already talked about that. Infrastructure, housing, and really quality of life. So, more and more, especially in this, I think this environment now, especially with young people, there's way more to where they want to live than just how much you're going to pay me. It's about sort of the quality of life, and so it's about the housing, and it's about having communities that people want to live in, and sense of place and smart growth and those things. So anyway, we created this organization after a lot of effort, And right away, we were successful in getting the foundations on board locally, and then the Ralph Wilson Foundation ultimately on board with a $1 million grant. And really what we're doing is we've got 5 different work groups, all with stakeholders that have a skill set in that world. And, identifying projects and then working with also municipalities who really don't have the technical wherewithal or the resources to sort of make these projects happen. And that's really what we're doing, is we're taking this money and we're able to push it back into the communities, working with consultants and helping them to really envision what it is they'd like to do in their communities, and then applying for the funding and making it happen. 2 examples are the Chautauqua River. We got 2 separate grants. We did a whole project at, what needs to be done down there to get more people and down to the water, and then leverage that work to apply for and receive funding through the state to do these projects. And then also the Mayville waterfront is another example where we're successful in getting I think a $675,000 grant there to do more work on their waterfront. So it's, again, in a nutshell, it's a public-private partnership that's able to take resources that we receive and able to sort of put it in places where it can do the most benefit for communities.
I'm reading this from the report. It serves as the catalyst and broker. I like the term broker, because you don't always think of that as, in the economic development world, as a broker. As a broker of resources for advancing economic prosperity efforts, and is the central coordinating entity for the formation, retention, development, and attraction of quality jobs and advancement to quality of life in Chautauqua County. And they are, when you hear their report, it's everywhere. And I know in your annual report, you have kind of a 2023 by the numbers, and I don't know if you want to recite that, but.
Yeah, so we were, we have a lot of meetings. So, over 40 partnership meetings. We assisted over 47 projects in 2023. Those are grants between, $5,000 and $40,000. We received over 11 grants, or grants for 11 projects. And the amount of that funding secured was about $1.1 million. We engaged 65 partners. And I think this is the most important one. Sometimes when, well, not sometimes, for all of these grant funds, through the state especially, there's a leverage quantity that's needed. In other words, they have to have some skin in the game, these communities, and they don't typically have that. And so we were able to really take our funding, leverage it that way, but also assisting with, we have 4 or 5 consultants that we have under retainer, and we're able to go to them and say, hey, can you draw up a plan for Mayville's waterfront, or whatever, or a specific project, or can you help write this grant? And so through those efforts, we were able to secure or be involved in securing about $28 million in grants coming to the county. So that's pretty significant, and so I think it's actually performing above and beyond my expectations for sure.
Well, it's relatively new, and I think that probably not fully understood yet. The results, as seen in this chart, are remarkable.
Yeah.
I think the leverage number is what's really, and for the camera, the 5 groups are business development, placemaking, workforce development, housing development, and infrastructure. And I'm the attorney for the Village of Faulkner, and you're down there helping us out as well. So.
Yep. Yeah, they're doing great work. Yep.
So, Mark, as we're cruising towards closure here, and there's no way to ever close an opportunity to talk to Mark Geise, because you are so many places. But is there topics or 2 that you'd want to make sure we get on presentation here today that we haven't? Or something that perhaps we can look in a crystal ball and you say, well, Greg, here's some things that are on the horizon you might have asked about?
No, I just think that, well, one thing is that we always have to be a little careful on how much we take on because, you end up creating your own monster. You have so much going on. At some point, you sort of got to say, okay, let's really concentrate on what we're doing right now. And I think we're at that point. I mean, I really want to get this shovel-ready site, not just this one, by the way. It's not one and done. It's continuing. It's Ripley, it's Mason. We're doing some more work down there to make it more shovel-ready and maybe even expand it, and who knows. And we're looking at other sites around, so that's something that we got to keep doing. We can't just say, okay, we're done now. So that's definitely something. I think we got to keep our young staff engaged and here. There's a lot of opportunities out there, so I think we got to continue to foster a culture of excellence and to keep those young people, and not just young people, all of us engaged and wanting to come to work every day and be motivated. I don't know, I can't really think of anything else right now when you say it like that, but our land bank's got to keep going. They're doing really good work. The Alliance, our lakes, our Chautauqua Lake, I've been involved in that for over 15 years. We got to really continue to make that a priority, a clean Chautauqua Lake. It's an economic driver here. And then I guess lastly, we hired Jason Sample recently, and it was a very good hire. He's our marketing and communications director at the IDA, and we've been working on for some time now a talent attraction and retention campaign. And we're getting close. In the next couple of months, we'll be rolling out that campaign, but it's really all about, this is a place, there's really kind of two angles. One is, this is a place that you want to come and live. It's a great place. We have it all. It's a great place to raise a family, that kind of thing. But then also, it's also a great place to have a business. It's a place that you want to set up shop here, and because we, again, not only are we, proactive in helping businesses, but also it's a great place to live, right? The quality of life thing. So we're going to be rolling that out. We recognize that since 1970, Chautauqua County has lost population, and we want to change that. We want to turn that around, and we want to start going the other way. And we're hoping that these efforts, and they're not easy. There's no silver bullet. It's complicated, and it takes a lot of effort, and we hope that we're on the verge of doing that.
Who might be the partners in a talent attraction? I'm personally intrigued by all of that. It's tried in many instances through different partnerships, and it started and sort of stopped. To have that sustainability of a program would require what I think you are going to roll out. But how do you recruit those organizations to partner with you?
Well, one is the Partnership for Economic Growth. We represent, what did I say, 70-some partners that all represent different organizations. It's those partners. It's the county. I mean, the county and PJ, County Executive Wendell has been involved, and he's behind this. We got to really keep pushing it there. The Visitors Bureau is crucial to this, because typically places that people want to visit are the same, they have the same attributes as places where people want to live. So certainly the Visitors Bureau, foundations. I mean, we really need, and through social media, sort of getting everyone involved. And that's not something I'm really talented at. But I know, we know, and Jason knows and others know that we really need to push it out there. And we've spent the time and resources to really hire the right people to help us with this, because we understand that that's not our forte either. But Block Club, who we're working with, they've done this in many places, and they're helping us to roll this out and then keep it sustained. So cross our fingers, see how it goes.
You're amazing. I rereading your executive summary, and normally it's a plug piece for whoever's writing the resume. A well-organized and consummate professional with extensive public and private sector experience, skilled in the management of personnel, plan, proposal development, grant writing, budgeting, written and oral communications, public speaking, stakeholder engagement, problem solving, and operating in a team environment. I must tell you that my observation of one Mark Geise is you have accurately described yourself in reality. And that's a not easy thing to do, and you've done it. So I applaud you. And,
Thank you.
And thank you for your time today, and we'll be sharing this on many platforms.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you.